Hello everybody and welcome back. Alright, in today's video we're going to be remaking the set of tutorials I made a while ago. If you notice on this channel, I've already started making tutorials, starting with the OBS one as well as the keybinds tutorial, which by the way, if you haven't seen those and you are interested, I recommend giving them a watch. In today's video, I'm going to focus more on how I edit my videos, and I'm going to do it a little bit different than last time because last time I sort of just showed the entire process, and that's why the video came out as an hour 14 minutes long. So hopefully this video will be shorter than that. Instead, what I'm going to be doing is essentially showing you footage of me editing and kind of commentating over it, explaining what I am doing. Without any further ado, I guess let's go ahead and get into the tutorial. Alright, so first things you're going to want to do is make sure all of your clips are in one folder. In my case, since I make gaming videos, what I like to do is I put each game's clips in one folder. So for example, in this video, we're making it over the Rainbow Six video I made. So I put all of my Rainbow Six clips into one folder. What I recommend you do is, even though you have all of your clips into this folder, I recommend you make another folder. And what I like to do is I just give it the date that is the date that I'm editing the video in. So you can see this video was made on August 25th. So I named it 0825. And then I put all of my clips in there, and you'll see why we do this like later on. Hopefully I remember to explain it. Go ahead and open Premiere, hit new project, name it whatever you want. In my case, I just named it Rainbow Six video. And then in project location, we're going to hit choose location. We're going to choose the folder, and then we're going to make another folder inside the folder. And we're going to call this one something like project or PROJ, because this is going to be all of our autosave files and all of our project files. I know all of this already sounds tedious, but I like to do this just to keep myself organized for later on. You'll see what I mean when I show the folders and the timelines and things like that. Also, I thought I'd leave this in. For some reason I got an error whenever I opened this project. I've never had this happen ever, and it shouldn't happen to you, but you know, I thought I would mention it just in case. All I did was just hit clear all and essentially ignored it, and everything worked out. All right, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a bunch of little folders inside of our project, and I'm going to name these clips, colors, images, and music. Next thing I do is I open the clips folder and I drag in all of my clips from the original folder. So the 0825 folder I drag in, and it's going to import all the files. As for the music folder and the images folder, those will come into use later on. I'm going to put all my background music into the music folder, and then all of the images that I use, such as like little memes and stuff that I put in the video, I like to sort them into the images folder. And we'll get to the colors folder in a second. All right, you can see here it's starting to import all of my different files after I drag them onto the timeline. By the way, when you drag your folders onto the timeline, like full of clips, it should do it in, I think, alphabetical order. Next thing you'll see me do is, while it's generating all of the audio previews, I'm going to go ahead and import some stuff I'll need later on. So in the colors folder, I import all of the colors that I use for subtitles. Like I said, we'll get into this later on when we go over the actual subtitles. Some other stuff you'll see me add in are things like my intro and outro music, the game logo, which I use for my intro as well. Basically all my intro and outro, and like other stuff that I need, like sound effects for my intro and outro. Yeah, that's when I drag it in here. All right, now that we have dragged everything in, all of our audio previews have loaded, we're basically all set to get started. So what I recommend you do is just go through each of these clips. I have a lot in my case, you might not have a lot in your case, and we're basically going to cut out all of the stuff that we don't want from these clips. So I'm going to leave only the funniest bits in to be able to edit them. This sounds time consuming, and it kind of is, but this is honestly the most fun part of the video. You're basically just going through and figuring out, you know, what makes it into a video and what gets cut from the video. In my case, while I'm doing this process, you'll see me doing a couple of different things. Like for one, you'll see me cutting out different like bad words, and that's just a personal preference thing. I just don't like to have them in my videos so that I don't like later on down the road get demonetized. Not that I am monetized right now, but you know, it's for future's sake. Another thing you'll see me doing is coloring my different clips different colors. So what I like to do is, how I set up my videos is I have an intro, and then I have my funniest clips in the beginning. I have sort of the rest of the clips in the middle section, and then I have an outro. And the reason I do this is because of audience retention rate. You want to keep people interested, you want to hook them early on. So I like to put funny stuff in the beginning, and how I know what's funny and what's not is I see a clip, and if I maybe laugh at it or I'm like, oh yeah, this is hilarious, what I'll do is I'll color it a certain color. In my case, I just use gray or light gray. That way later on when I zoom out of the timeline, I can tell which ones are the ones that I deemed funny, and I can take them and put them in the beginning of my video. By the way, if you're interested in the colors that I use, because you might be wondering, you know, why are the colors that I have different than the colors that you have in Premiere, is because I've set them up in the Adobe Premiere settings. If you're interested in the colors that I use, check out my last video going over my Adobe keybinds. I actually show off all the colors and stuff that I use. So if you're interested in that, check out that video. Another thing you'll see are me coloring different clips like red and brown. You can ignore these. These are for another video that I was making at the same time as this video. Essentially, they're just clips of like, if they're brown, it was clips of me dying, and if they're red, it's clips of me getting like super cool kills or something like that. Like I said, you can ignore these. I don't usually color the clips like red and brown. All right, so after you've gone through all of your clips and you've cut out all of the like useless parts, you'll see I'll zoom out of the timeline. This is kind of what we're left with, and I know it looks messy, but don't worry, we're going to clean this up. So one thing you can do is you can right click on a certain clip's color, and then you can go to label, then you can hit select label group. This will select all of the clips of that color. So you can see me doing it here with the red clips. I basically just selected the label color of red, and then I drag them all to the right to get them out of the way. And then I do the same for the brown, the dark gray, and the light gray clips. By the way, you'll also see right here, I'll put a little arrow. I already, as I was watching the video, I decided on a clip that I wanted to be the outro clip. So you can see I already sort of set up my outro over here. That's another thing I recommend you do as you're going through all these clips, kind of figure out which ones you maybe want for an intro, which ones you might want for an outro. And also be thinking as you're editing, you know, what are you going to title the video? Because that's usually the part that I have like the most problem with. I'm like, man, I don't know what to call the video, but sometimes it just clicks early on and I'm able to figure out, you know, this is what I want. Anyways, you'll see once we remove all of the like different colored clips, we're left with all the default clips, and there's a bunch of spaces in between them. Instead of going through each and every one of them and right clicking and hitting ripple delete over and over and over again, what I like to do is you can add something like an image, a video, an adjustment layer, or even a black video, which by the way, if you're wondering how you get those in your source project, if you go to new item and then you go to like black video or adjustment layer, you can get one of these. So what I did is I set an adjustment layer on this top level, and then you can see I dragged all of the video files on top of the adjustment layer and then dragged them back down. So now we're left with adjustment layers in between all of the gaps. And what we can do now is if we select all of the adjustment layers and we ripple delete them, which you can just do by right clicking and hitting ripple delete, it will automatically remove all of these spaces in between your clips so that you essentially squish everything down. That's just a little tip I thought I would give y'all. I don't see a lot of people talking about this. A lot of people do it the old-fashioned way of just ripple deleting each and every clip, and it's, you know, kind of time consuming. All right, now what you see on screen is me ordering and rearranging some of my clips. So like I said a bit earlier, I like to have an intro and then my funny clips. So what you see me doing right here is I'm finding what clip I want to be my intro, and I also moved all of my funny clips around to sort of have them flow a bit better. Once I found my intro, I go ahead and I start setting it up. Everything's personal preference for everyone. Everyone should, you know, do things differently to how they like. How I like to do my intro is I have a clip that I show with music, and then I show the game logo to kind of show what the video is going to be about, and then I go back into the funny moments clips, because I don't know if I mentioned I make funny moments videos. So you can see me right here just kind of setting up the audio and the sound effects that I want for all this stuff, and setting up the animation for the game logo when it pops in. Okay, I'm going to pause this frame real quick, and I'm going to put some little text, like I guess highlighters on screen to kind of show you what you're looking at. In the beginning, we have our intro with our funny clips, and then I have the intro on the end. You can ignore the red and the brown clips, by the way, like I said. And then finally, we have all of our leftover clips over to the right. So what you're going to see me do now is I take all of these leftover clips and I want to set them in between the intro and in between the outro. So I'm basically just going to go through each and every one of these blue clips and kind of choose which ones I really want to be in a video. You can see right here, this pink clip is a clip that was like about like 2 minutes long that I knew was going to be a bit harder of an edit, so I colored it pink so that I know like this is a high priority set of clips that I need to focus on. Color coding stuff really helps. I recommend all of you do it depending on, you know, what you're doing. I'm sure you can figure out a use for the different colors and things like that. And essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep on filling in clips over and over again until we get to be about, I'd say 8 to 15 minutes is like the sweet spot for a video. 8 minutes is about the lowest I would do unless I just absolutely don't have enough clips and I have to make it shorter. And then I wouldn't really recommend going above 15 minutes because after that, at that point, you should just, you know, cut your video in half and then make 2 videos with your 1 video, if that makes sense. So what I'm doing is I'm taking all of these blue clips, and I already know that I have so many that I'm going to be able to make another video in the future. So what I'm doing is I'm just filling in the spaces until we get to that 10-minute mark. All right, once we kind of have the order of the clips that we really want, I like to place markers in different areas. For example, I place one at the beginning, at the start of the funny clips, and then I place one at the end of the funny clips. I place another marker in the middle point of the video, and then I like to place another marker at the end where the outro starts. So I'll pause the frame. This is what you're seeing right here. That's those different markers right there. All right, and I know that was tedious, but we're essentially done with all of the ordering of our clips. And actually, surprisingly, if you don't care about subtitles, your video is essentially done. All you have to do is just add background music and you're good to go. In my case, obviously, I like to do a bit more. I like to add subtitles. I like to add images. I obviously add the background music and stuff. But if you don't care about that, or even if you're new to Premiere, I actually don't recommend that everyone does the like maximum effort amount. It's good to start off small is what I'm saying. So if you don't really want to do subtitles and stuff, you know, you can just add background music to your video and then you're done. Okay, so there's a couple stuff I forgot to mention, or I just thought I'd mention now because they'll be useful later on. If your video ever looks like this is because the video file is corrupted or quote unquote corrupted. I don't know what causes this. Sometimes OBS just makes videos come out like this in your Adobe Premiere. Don't worry though, your video isn't like fully lost. How I've found a way to fix this is what I do is I find wherever it is in my file explorer. All you have to do is either rename the file, or sometimes you can even just bring it out of the folder and then bring it back in, and sometimes it'll fix. In my case, you know, I just rename it and then just like add a letter to the front of the name, and then it fixes it after I re-edit into Adobe Premiere. I don't know why this happens, but I just thought I would mention that here. I also thought I would show, this is what the finished timeline of one of my like random moments videos. This is just a bunch of different files I do together. So the reason it's so colorful, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because all the different colors you see are different games that I featured in the video. So you can see I colored them the different colors of the games that I played, and I like to color each game a different color so that I don't like repeat the games multiple times in a row or too many times in a row. I like to keep them sort of evenly spaced. I just thought I would mention that for those of you who don't plan on uploading videos focused on one single game and wanted to focus more on like just general funny moments. And finally, I explained to you in the beginning why naming your folder after the date is important, and the reason for that is because, as you can see here, this is the folder of the project that we were working on. You can see I have a folder with all of my images and stuff, which we're going to get to way later in the video. Don't worry about that. You can see the video title that I came up with halfway through editing my video right there. And then what I recommend you do is every time you're, you know, obviously as you're editing your video, you're probably editing over like a week span. As you're still playing, you're still making clips and things like that. So I recommend you just put those clips into the folder, and then whenever you're ready to move them into Adobe Premiere, just create another folder with, you know, whatever the date is that you're moving them in. You can see in my case, we still have the 08-25 and the 09-05. The 09-05 are the new clips that I added in. And then you can see I have even more new clips on 09-07 that are ready to be moved into Premiere. So I just recommend you keep doing this to keep things organized. Every time you want to add new clips in, put them in a folder and then move the folder in. That way you don't accidentally keep on adding the same file over and over, and, you know, maybe even accidentally repeat files. So I just thought I'd mention that. Hopefully that is helpful to one of you. All right, before we can continue with the subtitle section, we actually have to do a little bit of a live demonstration type of thing where I show you how to set up things that you will need for your subtitle. So if you've been playing this video, like pausing and playing and coming back at the same time time as you editing, this would be a good time to save and then close out of your project. So starting off for our subtitles, there's 3 things that we're going to need. We're going to need 1, a font and the format that goes with it. 2, we're going to need an animation to our text just to make it pop a bit more. And then 3, we're going to need different colors for different people speaking. So I'm going to run you through all of those different things and hopefully explain it in the easiest way possible. What I'm about to go over can get really confusing, so if you don't understand something, it might be better to just do what you see on screen and then ask questions later type of thing. Starting off, like I said, we're going to need a font that we're going to work with our subtitles. There are different websites that you can get different fonts at. I recommend this one, defont.com, and you can see they have a whole bunch of different categories and fonts over here. So one thing you want to keep in mind when you're looking for fonts is that, like I mentioned before, these are going to be used for subtitles, so you don't really want something that's super confusing and intricate because it'll be harder to read on screen. Another thing to look out for is something like this font right here. These type of fonts only spell in all caps, so whenever you put anything in, it's only in capitals, which we don't really want because it's not like you're going to be shouting everything. Another thing you want to look out for are fonts that are too thick, like this one. Even if you like the way this one looks, it might not be best to use it for a subtitle. Okay, so I hear you asking, where should I look for subtitles on at least this website? I recommend you go to the basics section in sans serif, or even there's some in serif, basically all the basic sections. And I would just scroll through here and go through the different pages and try to find one that you like. I'll recommend some ones right here. This one is actually one I recommend like highly. It's called Made Tommy Soft. There's another one just called Made Tommy. I prefer the soft one because it's just got like better edges around everything. There's this one right here, Simply Rounded. This is actually the one that I use personally in my videos, so here's this one if you want. And then there's this one I found. This one has a bunch of different thin and thicknesses to it and is pretty round. I thought it looked cool. Another thing you can do is maybe use like game fonts, like this one right here. You can see Fortnite font. You could use the Fortnite font for your subtitle, or even something like Minecraft pixelated fonts, or like the Call of Duty fonts. And finally, here's another font that I found called Open Dyslexic. This is apparently meant to make it easier for dyslexic people to read, so maybe you'll be interested in this. It's really up to you, whichever one you pick. So just find one on a website and download it, and then we can finally get started. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make another project in Adobe Premiere. You saw I just made a test folder, so I'm just going to choose this folder and then hit create. And then I'm going to drag in just a couple of files to use for a test right here that we're going to do for our subtitles. And then I'm going to edit a bit down so that I only get myself talking. Okay, so this is pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select everything and I'm going to put an in and an out point on it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go over to text. We're going to go to transcript. These little dots right here, we're going to hit generate static transcript. And I'm going to open this little box right here. I'm going to choose for it to only do audio 1. So that's this first track, which is my microphone track. And then I'm going to hit transcribe inpoint to outpoint only. And then I'll hit transcribe. It'll run through for a second. Once that's done, go over to captions, hit create captions from transcript. We're going to open this. And then these are the settings that I like to use for mine right here. If you want to mess around later on with these 2 top sliders right here, you can. Anyways, go ahead and hit create captions and you'll see it'll make a caption bar up at the top. What we're going to do now is select all of our captions, go to graphics and titles, and go to upgrade caption to graphic. That's going to upgrade our captions to a editable text. You can see right here, it's at the very bottom and it looks very ugly. This is because it is the default like text and stuff. Don't worry, this is what we're going to be changing right here. So go ahead and choose one of your subtitles and we're going to triple click on one of the bars, or just highlight and select all of it. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go over to Essential Graphics over here. Oh, by the way, if you don't have one of these windows in your Adobe Premiere, what you can do is just go up to Window and find it in this area. So for this, you'll need Essential Graphics and you'll also need text right here. Anyways, once we're in Essential Graphics, what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down, and these right here are our important settings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to text, and in this video's case, I'm going to use the Made Tommy one that I recommended. All right, we got Made Tommy right here, and then we're going to choose our different thicknesses. I'm going to choose medium. Right here, this bar, we can choose the size of our subtitle. I recommend something around either 100 or less. I wouldn't really go below 70. In this case, I'm just going to set it to 80. I think that's around a good size. Next thing I like to do, go ahead and choose this top align text. That's going to align it to the top of this text box. The reason we do this is so that if we have different lines in our text, we can hit enter and then have different lines like that. Obviously, make sure center align text is on right here. And then this is where our customizing gets done. So I recommend you leave the fill as white. And then what we're going to do for the stroke is we're going to make this solid black. And then right here, we can increase the thickness of the outline. So what I recommend you do for this is I recommend you stay between about 10 and 20. I wouldn't really go above 20 because it gets to be a bit too thick. You can see this seems about how I would maybe want it. In this video's case, I'm going to set it to 15 just for a good medium point. If you want, you can adjust the shadow right here, or you can just remove the shadow. You might not even be able to really tell the difference with it on and off. In my case, I don't mind the shadow, so I'll just increase this bottom bar a bit to make it not as solid and more of like a soft shadow. Okay, and we are essentially done with our first style. What you're going to want to do is you're going to again select it all. We're going to scroll down to here, and in the style section, we're going to hit create style, and then we're going to name this one. So this one has a black outline. So in this case, you would name it black. And then we're going to hit OK. That's one of them done. Now what we have to do is we have to get enough colors for everyone who would ever speak in our video. So there's a couple ways to figure out what colors you want for your different people speaking. What I recommend you do is just go on Google and try to search for different color palettes. You can see right here, here's one on Pinterest for a pastel color palette. If you find one without the color codes, you can use a dropper tool in like Photoshop or something to try and find the hex code for it. If you're wondering what colors I use for my video, here are the ones that I use on the left. The ones on the right were the old colors I used. You could see I didn't have a lot of them, so I made these new ones over here, because the more amount of colors that you have to use for subtitles, the more amount of people you can have speaking at a time. And I like to designate different colors for different friends of mine. So for example, red is my friend Riley, orange is my friend Kenny, green is my friend Max, magenta is my friend Carson, and you get the idea, so on and so forth. Every color has a different person assigned to them. If you're wondering where I got these colors from, these are actually the Minecraft dye textures. So there's one color for every Minecraft dye. And there are some colors I designate entirely for random people speaking in the video. For example, the grays and the yellow, just because no one really wants their subtitles to be yellow or gray. So what I save these for is whenever there's like a random guy in game chat talking, I'll usually make him one of these couple colors. Hopefully that gives you a decent idea of where to get different colors for your subtitles. But anyways, once you have your colors figured out, what you're going to want to do is you'll go back to your text and you'll select it. We're going to scroll down again, and in the stroke section right here, we're going to change this color to one of the ones we want. So in my case, I'm just going to use the ones that I already have right here. So I'm going to select this red, and then I'll go into here. I'll put the red in. You'll see it gets applied right here. And then we're going to go to styles, and we're going to hit create style again. And for this one, we'll just title red. And boom, you can see it right here. And then you're going to keep doing that over and over and over again for each color that you want, as many colors as you want. I recommend at the very least you have enough colors for all the colors of the rainbow, including black, pink, brown, and dark gray and light gray. As you can see with mine, I have some different things mixed up. Like I have a normal blue, a light blue, and a cyan. Same with the green, I have a dark green and a light green, and purple I have a magenta and a purple. Like I said before, the more colors you have, the more people you'll have able to speak in your videos. All right, so once you have all of your colors done, for this sake I just only did 3, what you're going to want to do is select them all. You can select them by holding Control and clicking on them. And once you select all your colors, go ahead and right click them, and then go down to export text styles right here, and you can name this and save this wherever you want. I'll name this tutorial styles and save it over here. And now whenever you start a new project, what you can do is you can click and drag this file right here into Adobe Premiere, and it will automatically, obviously I still have these in here, so let me delete these. Whenever you drag this into your project, it will automatically drag your colors in. In my case, you can see my one right here. If I drag this in, it's going to drag in all of my different colors that you can see. This just makes it faster for doing all of these text colors, and I'll show how to use these more later in the tutorial. But if you'll notice, if you select all of these different subtitles and we, hover over this one right here, if you click and drag one of these styles onto your subtitle track, it will automatically color them and set the font and size and all of that different stuff for you automatically. Okay, so that's great. We have the way we want our subtitle to look, but now we need an animation to kind of make the subtitles look a bit better, because by default it's just kind of boring. So what we're going to do, we're going to select one of our subtitles right here, and we're going to go over to Effect Controls, and then over here on the graphics side, what we can do is in the position, this second little blue number right here, we can select how high or low we want our subtitle to be. If you go to View and hit Show Guides or hit Add Guide, you can add these little lines on your screen that you can turn on and off with this button right here. And what I like to do is I like to have my subtitle a bit below the middle point of my video. So you can see this line right here is the middle marker, and I like to have my subtitle right below it. So I'm going to set this at 410 in my case. These numbers might be different for you depending on your subtitle. Then what we're going to do is we're going to make an animation. So let's drag our playhead to the beginning of this subtitle. We're going to select the scale icon over here, the little clock, and then we're going to set the scale lower at the start. So I'm going to start with 80, and then I'm going to jump ahead 2 frames, and then I'm going to set this higher than 100. So I'll do 110 right here, and then we'll go forward 1 more frame, and then we can set this back to 100. And what that does, if you watch this, is it adds a little, here, let me remove the grid. It adds a little animation for our subtitle, which is nice. That's exactly what we want. So now what we're going to do once we have our animation is we're going to click on the vector motion up here. We're going to right click it. We're going to hit Save Preset, and we're going to hit Anchor to Endpoint, and then you can call this whatever you want. I recommend you title it something like Text Animation. We're going to be making 2 of these, by the way. So we're going to have one text animation that goes above this text box, and then we're going to have this normal one. So I'm going to title this Text Animation Normal. There we go, something like this. And then we'll hit OK. And then what we're going to do is we're going to, in my case, I'm going to duplicate this file right here. You can do that by holding Alt and then clicking and dragging up. And then when I click on this one on top, what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit the position. I'm going to edit it to be a little bit above this subtitle right here. So in this case, for me, that would be 285. And then we're going to do the same thing. Click on this, save the preset, and we're going to title this something like Text Animation Above. And then once again, make sure it's on Anchor to Endpoint, and we'll hit OK. And now what you can do is, again, I'll explain a little bit more of this later in the tutorial, but if we select all of our bottom layers and we go over here to the effects panel, and in our presets, you should see right here, we have our text animations. You can see these are the ones I use in my video. So we're going to select the text animation normal, and we're going to select them on all of the bottom tracks, and that will give an animation automatically to all of these different subtitles. You see this? And then we'll do the same thing for the top layer. And the reason we do this is because sometimes you and your friend are talking at the same time. Maybe you both say like what at the same time, something like that. So in this case, as you can see, it has different animations for both the top and the bottom. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing, and hopefully you understood that. Now let's go back to me commentating over the video so that I can show where you use your different colors and how to use your animations properly and all of that different stuff. Alright, the first thing you'll see me doing to start off our subtitles is selecting our entire project and putting an in and an out point, and then going up to the text tab and going to transcript, hitting the little ellipses and going to generate static transcript. And what this does is it will automatically create a transcript based on what Adobe Premiere thinks that you're saying. I'm going to be honest, Adobe Premiere is kind of bad with guessing what you want to say, especially if you have friends with terrible mics or your own mic is bad. Anyways, in my case, I do this on the first layer so that it's only my microphone layer. And then once that's done, we go over to captions. We hit create captions from transcript. You can copy the settings I have down right here. And then we hit create, and it's going to go ahead and create them. We select all of them, go up to graphics and titles, and then hit create captions from transcript. If you want, you can right click and delete the captions layer that it made. And what I do is I select all of the captions that it made and I color them all white, because obviously that's the color that I use for my subtitles is black and white, and then I move them down onto the first layer, and then we got to do the same thing all over again, except this time I'm doing it on audio layer number 2 because this is going to be the audio layer that my friends speak on. It's better if you can separate your friends, like your Discord audio, from your game audio, but that's a conversation for a different video. If your friend's audio is on your same layer as your game audio, then the subtitles are going to be way more off than usual, but it's okay, it's still workable. Once again, copy the same settings. We're going to leave the style as black. I know I just told you guys how to create different colors, but we're going to be going over how to color things later, so leave the style as black. And then I'm going to do the same thing where I select them all, go up to graphics and titles, hit upgrade captions to graphics, and then make sure they're on the second layer. Okay, and now what you want to do is, as you can see on the left, I have the solo, you see the little yellow icon. This means that it is soloing the track, so it is only playing that top track right now, which is the track that I'm speaking on. And then what I do is I go through and I adjust the different text box to match up with what I'm speaking with, because sometimes Adobe Premiere will have the text box start a little bit early or end a little bit later. So what I do is I just cut off, I basically trim the beginning and ends of each of them so that they match up with whatever I'm saying. And this is a long but pretty easy process. You can see I'm speeding it up. And we're going to do this along the entire timeline up until we're finished. And then once we're finished with our text layer, we're going to do the same thing, but with the audio that our friends speak on. So I'm going to solo their track, and then I'm going to go through and adjust all of the different sizes. As you're going through adjusting your different friends' subtitles, what I recommend you do is you color each of them dependent on whoever's speaking. This is going to come in handy a lot later. What I also recommend you do is, since obviously our friends' subtitles are on a layer above ours, if your subtitle isn't in the way, I recommend you move your friend's subtitle to the bottom layer so that they're speaking on the first layer. Does that make sense? If they're speaking over you or you're speaking over them, then move your subtitle above. Basically, you want whoever has priority speaking privileges to be on the bottom subtitle layer. Hopefully that makes sense. I know that sounds a bit confusing. So just keep on going with all this, coloring them, moving them up and down, trimming them. And when all that's done, you should be finished with the easy part of subtitling. Real quick, I want to show you 2 images of a before and after for the subtitling right here. So this image you're seeing right now is the subtitles that I have finished for just my layer only. And then the second one I'm going to show you is the one with all of it together. So you can see all of the different colors for my different friends' subtitles are all intermixed in the first layer. And then the ones that are on top are usually happening when someone is speaking at the same time as someone else. Also ignore all of the subtitles above the pink area. That's something that I was just kind of saving it for later because it was really confusing to work with. So sorry about that. All right, so now what you're going to want to do is go back to the very beginning, solo your audio track again, your microphone audio track. And this time you're going to be going through, and on all of your subtitles, you're going to press the text button, or the text key. For me, it's T. And then you're going to go through and fix all of your subtitles. Sometimes, like I mentioned before, Adobe Premiere might get it perfectly and understand completely what you're saying. Other times it might miss it completely and entirely, and you'll have to go through and fix it. Basically, this is what you're doing in this section. You're just going to go through and fix all of the text so that it actually matches what you're saying. In my case, I also like to remove a lot of the punctuation because Adobe Premiere is very prim and proper with its punctuation. It adds commas and periods and things like that, and sometimes I don't really want that, so I, adjust all of that as well. And once you're finished doing all that, which by the way, that probably took you a bit to do, you're going to do the same thing, but this time for all of your friends' text. So you're going to go through and, like I said, do the exact same thing. Just find all of your friends' text and adjust them to make it match whatever they're saying. If you need to, you can hide the above and below layers. You'll see those like flickering on and off in this time lapse here, because if you have a text box over another text box, you can't really type too well. So if you have someone talking over someone else, make sure you hide whichever layer you need to hide to get to whichever text box you need to be able to edit. And this is going to take you forever. This is why I mentioned before, I recommend you, either skip out on subtitles entirely if you're starting out, or don't do as many subtitles. Maybe only do subtitles for like the punchline of a joke or the setup and the punchline of a joke, or only like the funniest bits put in subtitles, because this takes forever to do. But luckily, once you've gone through and you have adjusted all of your friends' text to whatever you want to say, now all that's left is to color them and add the animation for the text. So what I recommend you do is you select all of the bottom text and then you add in your normal text animation that we made before, and this is going to automatically add an animation to all of those bottom ones. And then you're going to do the same thing for the top layer of subtitles. You're going to select all of those and add the top text animation. Then to color them all, what you can do is right click on one of your subtitles, go to label and hit select label group, and this will select all of the subtitles of that color. And then what you can do is you can click and drag one of your colors onto the subtitles, and this will automatically color it for every single one on your timeline. So now all you need to do is go through and select each of your different colors that you have, right click, select label group, and then choose the color for the different one. Make sure you do that for all of your different colors, because if you forget one of your friend's colors, then it will be left as the default black and white, the same as yours, and it'll get a bit confusing. By the way, if you, for example, in my case, have a subtitle the same color as your footage, for example, my friend Zach is the light blue color subtitle, which is the same color as the video files. So whenever you right click those and you select all, it will select all of the clips. Don't worry about applying the text colors to those. It isn't going to like color your video or anything. It will only apply to the subtitles that you selected. So nothing's going to happen to your videos. And that hopefully should be the end of your subtitle journey. Probably the most annoying and most time consuming part of any video. Now all that's left is to add music and images and, you know, a little bit of spice. All right, now that our subtitles are done, I know that probably was confusing. Now all that's left, at least in my case, is to add background music and also add things like images and GIFs and, you know, a little bit of some extra flair just to make the video a bit funnier. So as I was going through my subtitles, as you may have seen, I was adding different markers and stuff to kind of figure out like, oh, maybe I want to add a funny image here, or, you know, just thinking things up in my head, adding markers at places where I thought I would add GIFs or images or sound effects or things like that. So what I do after the subtitles are done is I go ahead and I go to each and every marker and I figure out what I wanted to do there. If I wanted to add an image, I go ahead and I find the image on Google and I download it and I import it into the project. If I wanted to maybe zoom in on something, I'll go ahead and zoom in on that certain area. If I want to add a sound effect, I'll add the sound effect. In reality, this part's pretty self-explanatory. Just figure out which images and stuff you want at certain areas in your video and just add them in. Crop them if you need to, edit the size of them if you need to. You get the idea. I like to set all of my images above my two subtitle layers just to sort of keep them out of the way if anyone was wondering. And once I've done all of my images, I put them all in the image folder to also get them out of the way. Oh, and also whenever I complete a little section, whenever I complete one of my markers where I add whatever I wanted to, I delete the marker as well so that it's not in the way. All right, and that is all the images done. Now all we need to do is add the music. So what you can see me doing here is in all my videos, I use Animal Crossing music from the different games, like for example, New Leaf, and I have a folder filled with all of the audio that I use. If you're wondering what music you should use for your videos, there's a couple copyright free options that you can find like on YouTube, such as something like Stream Beats or no copyright sounds or things like that. Those usually are more on the side of like EDM and stuff like that. I don't recommend that for the type of videos I make, like funny moments. I recommend doing something more like chill. You just have to make sure it's copyright free. In my case, the reason why I use Animal Crossing music is for two reasons. Number one, I like Animal Crossing. It's one of my favorite games. But also number two, usually video game music doesn't get copyright struck in videos because then people wouldn't be able to upload videos on different games and things like that. So if you have a game that you like, usually like Nintendo games and stuff, and you like the music from that, like a Pokemon game, what you can do is just go through, download, you know, the music from Pokemon or whatever, and then drag it into your project and use that for your background music. But anyways, what you'll see me doing is choosing which songs that I like best. So I'll go and listen through and say, okay, yeah, I think this one fits for the beginning of my video. And then I'll drag it in on the layer that I want it to be on. And then I'll do that for each and every song that I want. From there, I'll adjust the audio. You know, usually when I drag in these music files, they're a bit too loud. So I'll lower the audio so that you can still hear, you know, the game and my voice and my friend's voice. Because keep in mind, this is background music. It's meant to be in the background. It's not meant to be like overly too loud to where you can't hear what's going on. You'll also also see what I'll do is I'll right click the end of each of my music files and I'll hit something called apply default transitions, and this will automatically add a fade out at the end of all of my music clips, so that way at the very end, whenever the music is good, it will fade out. What you'll also see me doing is sort of cutting the music files a bit shorter. I like to end different music on different clips if, you know, the music's been going on for too long, or if it's like a new section. So usually I'll just try to have them line up with the start of a new clip or start of a new like bit or something like that, if that makes sense. So what I'll do is I'll just cut them to be at the start or the end, and then I'll add, or I'll adjust the fade from the last clip so that it fades nicely into the next audio file. Hopefully what I'm saying makes sense. And basically you want to go through and keep on finding audio tracks until your entire video is covered in background music. And then once you've done that, you should be completely done with your video. So now what you're going to see me do is I'm going to open Adobe Media Encoder, and this is what I'm going to use to export my video. You can export it in Adobe Premiere itself if you want. I just prefer to do Media Encoder because I like to render two versions of my video. One of them is the one that you're seeing, the finished product with all of the images, the music, and all of that. And then the second video I like to render is a version with all of the background music cut out, in case for some reason my intro, outro, or background music ever gets copyright struck by YouTube. I like to just save a version without any of it so that I can go back and re-add in whatever music I need to replace whatever music. It's also good for, by the end of the year, I like to do these like best of the year videos. It's good that I can have a video without any background music in it to kind of use for those videos. Essentially, I just make two files, one of them for the main video and the other one that I can save on my hard drive without any background music that I can use for just in case reasons. All right, so select your in point and your out point. Go ahead and press Control M or click up at the top to the export tab. And I'm actually going to show on screen right now the settings that I recommend for you to do to render your video at. So go ahead, and if you need to, pause the video, take a screenshot, or just, you know, write down whatever settings I have right here. Make sure you name your video whatever you want, and then you can either hit export, or in my case, I hit send to media encoder, and then you're done. Render them out and you should be finished. Alright, and that's going to be the end of this video. If you liked it, go ahead and give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already. Also, stay tuned. I'll be uploading one more video in this sort of Adobe Premiere editing style where I go over how to turn the video that you just made into a TikTok or an Instagram or like a portrait video so that you can upload it to those platforms. So definitely make sure you're subscribed so you see that. If you have any questions about anything I mentioned, or you just want to, you know, say something, go ahead and leave it in the comments. This isn't my main channel, so I don't really check the comments here too often, but when I do, I'll make sure I'll respond to your comment or, you know, whatever it is that you're saying. Anyways, that's all for now. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, everybody.